Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin are in talks tonight to try to bring an end to the war in Ukraine. The leaders arrived in Anchorage in Alaska a couple of hours ago, greeting each other on a red carpet laid out at a US Air Force base. It's the first time they've met face-to-face since 2019. In the run-up to these talks, President Trump said his aim was to see a ceasefire rapidly and that he wouldn't be happy if one wasn't agreed today. Yet one person who isn't there is Ukraine's President Zelensky. He isn't invited, despite the fact the talks are about the fate of his country, which Russia invaded 3.5 years ago. He has said he's counting on America. Our North America editor, Sarah Smith, is in Anchorage tonight. Sarah.
Yeah, those talks are going on now at this US military base where I am. I have to say, this is a highly unusual situation for a top-level summit like this because we really don't know what's likely to happen, what might be agreed in these discussions. Normally, at an event like this, most of it's been worked out well in advance and it's pretty clear what the outcome is likely to be, but that is not the case here. Donald Trump's made his aims very obvious. He has said clearly that he wants to see a ceasefire and end to the fighting in Ukraine. And until that's in place, he doesn't want to talk about territorial deals or land swaps, as he calls them. That's for another meeting, he says. But what's not at all obvious is what Vladimir Putin's aims are. He has not let on whether or not he is going to agree to a ceasefire like that. So we're left in a situation where we really don't know what the outcome is likely to be. And it all comes down to what's going on in that meeting room right now. Donald Trump applauded Vladimir Putin's arrival in Alaska. The red carpet here is both literal and metaphorical. For the Russian president, this is not just a return to America, but back into the international community, which has isolated him since the invasion of Ukraine. For President Trump, this could be the start of a diplomatic triumph, but he doesn't yet know if Mr. Putin will agree to stop the fighting in Ukraine.
President Putin, will you stop killing civilians?
He claims he can't hear the inconvenient questions. On his flight to Alaska, Donald Trump was clear about what he wants from this summit.
But I want to see a ceasefire rapidly. I don't know if it's going to be today, but I'm not going to be happy if it's not today. Everyone said it can't be today, but I'm just saying I want the killing to stop. I'm in this to stop the killing.
Making the long trek from Moscow, Vladimir Putin made a symbolic stop to honour Soviet and American pilots who fought together in World War II, but gave no clue as to what he might offer today. Russian drones struck the Ukrainian town of Sumy overnight, just hours before the peace talks were due to begin. A last blast from Moscow, or a sign of more to come? President Zelensky will not be at the table for talks today. He's obviously worried about decisions being made without him.
Russia must end the war, which it started and which has dragged on for years. A stop to the killings is necessary. A meeting of leaders is necessary. At least Ukraine, America and the Russian side. This is the format that can provide possible effective solutions.
In Alaska, the Russian foreign minister says they're ready to explain the key objectives as they see them.
We
never make any plans in advance. We know that we have arguments, a clear, understandable position. We will state it.
It is not every day that the US president gives his Russian counterpart a lift. But Donald Trump believes this is a special relationship. And riding in the limo together gives them some alone time before the meetings in which they'll be flanked by advisers.
Mr. Putin, will you agree to a ceasefire?
Under the optimistic slogan of pursuing peace, the negotiating teams posed for the cameras just before the talks began. Behind closed doors, they're now discussing the prospects for peace in Ukraine, very far away from the front line. Sarah Smith, BBC News, Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson, Alaska.
Well, we'll hear more from Sarah in a moment. As you can see, she and our Russia editor Steve Rosenberg are both at that US air base where the summit is happening. Our defence correspondent Jonathan Beale we'll also be hearing from. He is in Kyiv in Ukraine tonight. Let's get the thoughts first of our Russia editor. Steve, what did you make of that welcome given to Vladimir Putin?
The body language was fascinating. And Vladimir Putin hasn't just been brought in from the cold, he's been given the warmest of welcomes. Just watching the images of Donald Trump clapping as President Putin was walking towards him. Donald Trump clearly couldn't wait for that handshake, and then we saw the very warm handshake, patting on the arm, patting on the hand, the walk down the red carpet, the two men getting into the limousine together. All of this, I think, clearly designed to show that Putin and Trump want to build a closer relationship. And so, such a change around. We've gone from a situation a few years ago when Vladimir Putin was the murderous dictator, as President Biden described him. We've gone from that to Vladimir Putin, the honoured guest, despite the fact that Vladimir Putin launched the full-scale invasion of Ukraine 3.5 years ago, despite the arrest warrant issued by the International Criminal Court to Vladimir Putin. He's now the honoured guest. And he's got the US-Russia summit he wanted in a place where Russia and America are geographically very close. That's symbolic. And in a place far away from Europe, far away from Ukraine. And that's symbolic too.
Yes, Steve, thank you. Well, let's go to Ukraine. Jonathan Beale, President Zelensky, notable by his absence in all of this, of course.
Yeah, President Zelensky saying high stakes indeed, echoing what President Trump has already said. But there aren't high hopes for this summit here, at least as far as Ukraine is concerned. Not high hopes either of an imminent ceasefire. Russia has been firing drones into Ukraine tonight, even as we speak, shelling Ukrainian towns and villages near the front line. Ukraine has had to send additional forces to the east to stop a Russian advance. President Zelensky says there is no indication that President Putin wants to end this war. The test for President Zelensky in these talks is whether they lead to a real path, what he calls a just peace. And for that, he says Ukraine must be involved in these negotiations. He wants that to happen. That would be a small win for President Zelensky, because at the moment, President Putin has not agreed to talk to him, doesn't even recognize him as the legitimate leader of this country. So for now, President Zelensky is having to say, we're counting on America, because he's not there. He doesn't trust President Putin. He'll soon find out.
Jonathan Beale, thank you. Well, let's get some final thoughts tonight from Sarah. What does success look like then for President Trump?
It looks like some kind of concrete agreement coming out of these talks, and that's what he is not guaranteed of. He doesn't know for sure that Vladimir Putin will agree to something that he can call a success. Before he set off from Washington to fly here, Donald Trump posted on social media in all capital letters just two words: high stakes. And that's what this very much is for him. After the lavish warm welcome he has given to Vladimir Putin without any guarantees of an agreement, he cannot now, with his prized deal-making skills, come away empty-handed from this summit. He very much wants to be seen as a global peacemaker. He certainly doesn't want to be seen as somebody who was unable to reach a deal. So behind closed doors, as we speak right now, they are talking about what they can announce when they come out to a joint press conference in a couple of hours' time. And unless there is something of some substance that Donald Trump can claim as a victory and the reason for hosting the summit in the first place, he will be very upset if he's left empty-handed and red-faced at the end of this summit.